Well, a little night music for the day. This is how we start our days off here in Cerberus. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Waking Up Cerberus. We are waking up everybody, everywhere. Anyone who has ears, let them hear. Anyone who has eyes, let them see. Mozart proclaims it well. We have a little bit of day music for you today. I'd like to welcome Suzanne Sherman, our resident lawyer in prosecutor in defender in chief. And behind the scenes, Mr. Jeff, I can do it all Johnson, our producer, producing everything from the beginning to the end and everything in between and things unseen. Just draw yourself a regression line and you'll find everything that he's done from the beginning to the end, and you'll have an idea of where Jeff is going to go in the future. We've got so many interesting topics for you today. We wanted to start off with just a little bit of snow update, but first, our legal messages, legal disclaimer, and everything legalistic from Suzanne.
Well, good morning, gentlemen. What a great way to start the day. We're up and early, starting out at 9 o'clock, 7 o'clock, my time out here in the hinterlands of Utah. Junk Bond, I have to do a quick correction there. I never worked for the prosecution when I worked in the criminal defense realm. I never, ever worked on behalf of the Crown to put people in cages. So quick.
Oh, I didn't say you did it before.
Oh, now I
Yeah, your opportunities abound. You'll be doing it in the future. Don't worry. I can see how this works.
I'll be one of the leaders of the camps. Hey, we can follow us on Facebook.com/Cerberus Radio Network, YouTube. We have a YouTube chat room. So if you're watching, listening live, continue to weigh in. I want to thank everybody that is doing so and thank them for their comments. I go back after the show and see them. And so thank you for participating. If you missed the show live, you can catch us on SoundCloud as well. We also tend to dabble in Twitter on occasion. I also have a SoundCloud and a YouTube button on my brand new website, SuzanneCSherman.com. All the articles that I have published are there in one spot as well. And I think I just did my third or fourth blog as of last night, and that's going to be the topic we open our show with today. I like to talk about preparedness. It kind of helps warm me up, wake me up on these morning shows. As you know, we had a massive storm. I think they called it a bomb cyclone or a cyclone bomb. I'd never heard that phrase before. We got clobbered with snow, but nothing like we saw in Colorado. Jeff, you and I talk about vehicle preparedness all the time. What did we see in Colorado? People stranded on the roads everywhere. So I took a picture of one of the stock photos from what was going on out there and made a little blog about this. But apparently from the Colorado Springs Gazette, they're saying they had 100-mile-an-hour winds. There was a 95-mile-an-hour wind in the Pike Peaks region on Wednesday. The article says hundreds of drivers were stranded. Eventually, 1,100 of them were. Thousands lost their power. They called this a bomb cyclone. I'd never heard that term. It's actually a rapidly intensifying storm. And it caused whiteout conditions, closed businesses, highways, schools, medical systems. There was also a 600 call backlog. You know, we talk about this all the time. You might think that you might not need assistance because somebody will be there to help you, but there will be a time when the government resources, the rescue resources are simply overtaxed. This is why you need to be ready. You know, what struck me as interesting with this storm too, gentlemen, was the fact that they had plenty of warning. It's kind of like a hurricane, you know, you've got some time to prepare for this. And there were warnings going out everywhere telling people to stay off the roads. Yet here you see the pictures of people stranded out on the roads everywhere.
Those are the sovereign citizens.
Those are the sovereign citizens. I pay taxes to travel on these roads, and by golly, I'm going to do so whenever I want. You know, sometimes you can predict when you're going to have problems. Other times you can't. And I mentioned this in my blog yesterday that I just put out. You know, you can be stuck in an accident right here behind my house in Echo Canyon on Interstate 80, which, by the way, was closed yesterday up in Evanston because of the severe weather. But I think it was last year we had a a situation where trucks had crashed. There was a black ice situation, and it turned out over 30 vehicles, trucks and passenger cars, were piled up out there, dead of winter at night. What are you going to do if that happens to you? I tell people all the time, think about what you're going to do if traveling from point A to point B is interrupted. You are stranded for a long time. You're almost out of gas because you were just going to fill up in Evanston. You were just 5 miles from there. Now you're stuck overnight and you can't keep your heater on. What are you going to do? You know, Jeff, do you think people are maybe starting to realize that us preparedness-minded individuals aren't so crazy after all?
No, they still think we're crazy because they still, come on, Suzanne, the vast majority of people out there are still depending on government to take care of every little thing. Oh, they'll send help. I mean, the state police will be here in no time. Well, maybe there's 2,000 accidents and the state police are at accident number 5. And there's only 1,995 more to get to you. So, yeah. No, they're not getting. Most people are going to sit there and freeze in their car, and you know it, and I know it.
Yeah, what was interesting?
Some are listening. I'm not going to say everyone's not, but some are listening.
One woman had said that this storm went from virtually nothing to Armageddon, and I have personally seen how quickly these storms can roll in out in this part of the country. That being said, again, there were so many admonitions about the severity of this storm that was coming through and for people to stay off the roads. So that being said, what are you going to do in winter conditions? Let's briefly go over this. And, you know, depending on the size of your vehicle, you might have to prioritize. Not everybody can have, let's say, a shovel to dig themselves out. They have folding shovels. You can do something like that. What scenario do you want to start with, Jeff? How about we're on the freeway and you're stuck there for hours. It's 20 below and your vehicle is not uncompromised right now. Your windows are intact. You haven't really crashed, but you're caught up in this pileup. I think everybody should have the minimum of a pair of spare boots, because if you're just going to the gym, and I do this all the time, I'll drive to Park City and I'll have my gym shoes on, but boy, howdy, if I get stuck out there, they're not going to do me a lot of good. Have a pair of snow boots. Prepare for this weather. If you are stuck and can't get help, frostbitten feet will not help you if you have to get out. If you can stay in your vehicle, a jacket will help. If you were smart enough to keep your tank filled up as much as possible, you can keep your vehicle running intermittently. Do remember to make sure, especially in a blizzard condition, that the outside of the exhaust pipe does not get blocked from snow. We see people dying from that.
Can I make a comment about frostbite, please?
Yes.
You know, I served just a few weeks in the Army or two, about 27 years worth of weeks. And frostbite is no joke. Some people, you know, they just kind of glaze over it. People, they talk about it, and you have to be careful for cold winds and winter. And it's just like a glancing thought these days. Frostbite kills your skin. You can lose your foot from frostbite. You can lose your fingers from frostbite. You can lose your nose from frostbite. What happens is your skin and the muscle and the cartilage and the tendons and the bone, everything inside freezes solid, like when you put it in the freezer at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what happens to it. And you cannot revive it after it is frozen solid. It does not work. You will lose that piece of your body. So I just want to make the point so people do not misunderstand how serious frostbite really is and what happens during hypothermia. You don't even realize you're entering into the later stages of hypothermia. You'll go from really cold to very complacent, saying, oh, you know what? Actually, I feel pretty good right now. I'm okay. But what's happening is your internal organs are shutting down. If you don't get warm, your core body temperature will drop and you will literally freeze to death, just like a block of ice.
I think that's the reasons they say when you start feeling sleepy, absolutely keep yourself awake, because that's when you'll just fall asleep and not wake up. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You will not recover. You will not wake up. It's not going to happen because your body does not have the ability to activate or turn back on your internal organs. They're, everything is shut down. You're dead.
I have in my notes here trains, planes, and automobiles, because just a couple weeks ago, we had a train that was stopped up in the Oregon area, and the passengers, I think, were stranded there for about a day and a half. There were no hotels in which they could put these people, and they ran out of food. The bathroom facilities became compromised. There was some water there, but I always tell people, again, plan for being stuck for a while. Also, the Denver airport was completely shut down. What if there was a power outage? Wouldn't it be nice to make sure that you could, these places have some backup generators, but again, you never know. Once you're in that secured area and you can't really get out and find another place to stay, always have the means. How long are you going to be there? Do you have medications? Plan for a day or two extra. Think about food. Always have some water there with you as well. So, again, we had an airport shut down, all these massive transportation issues on the roads out there, a train stuck recently. It's so important. Even if it's, say, a summertime situation and you're traveling over areas that will have very cold weather, some of them never, ever warm up. So always plan on what is going to be the most extreme area that you're going to be traveling through. Again, some other things to have in your vehicle. I got these really cool, they look like little hockey pucks, and it's called Garage Monkey Engineering, and they have all these different settings where they're beacons. It's an LED light, orange lights. You can put them on the road. You can put them on the hood of your vehicle, or if it's really windy, you can even put it on their dashboard. They have a really great LED flashlight as well, and they come in a little carrying case. I think stuff like this is great to have so you can warn other vehicles or have a signal beacon if somebody can't find you. These are things you need to think about when you're going to be in a vehicle in this kind or any other weather. I mean, you could go off a road somewhere. Again, I have a kind of a perspective of mountain driving out here, but you might need to have some sort of a beacon where people can find you as well. Have a jacket. I always say have a tarp. I love tarps. You should have one in every bag as well, with some duct tape. If a window's compromised and you need to block off part of it, or if you have a big vehicle and you want to make it easier to keep warm, you can actually tarp off the part behind your back seat and keep the front of the vehicle warm. Anything else you gentlemen want to include in this?
I would say always have a little bit of what we used to call 550 cord in the military. Comes in very handy. It's extremely strong. If you need to, you can make a tourniquet. You can hang things with it. One piece of the strand inside is enough to hang 120 pounds.
I carry paracord in every pack I have.
Yeah,
I mean, that goes without saying almost, because that stuff's awesome. And the other thing I carry in my truck during the winter months is I carry winter rain gear. It's heavy material that's waterproof, so that if you have to get out and start moving, you are going to stay dry, because staying dry is number one if you're going to be outside in the snow.
And the other thing, again, an IFAC, small tourniquet, we can just bring this out however and make a whole show about everything you should bring. But the point of my bringing this topic up today is you got to think about this. This is not something that is so remotely unlikely to happen to you that you don't have to think about this. I encourage anybody out there to have a vehicle kit ready. You have to think about your situation, what is likely to affect you the most, and how can you be prepared, and then go all out. And then also start doing some research. Think, if you are stranded there, what parts of your vehicle can you use to assist you? A lot of people don't think about the mirrors as signaling systems, or the floor mats in the vehicle to use to help you drive out if you're stuck in the snow. So this is a great starting point for the discussion. Do your research on your own and start figuring out, what's going to apply to you the most. I have an announcement also for those of my friends out in Florida. This was something that came out from the Florida 10th Amendment Center. There is actually a bill that is being discussed in their Senate, CS SB 82, we were talking about vegetable gardens and local zoning laws. I'm kind of throwing this out there. I know we didn't prep for this, guys, but just a quick heads up, I came across this. They're talking about this bill is about prohibiting local governments from regulating vegetable gardens on residential properties. This is a big advancement for property rights here. We have seen, and we discussed this the other day, that localities have justified this because they say the government has a compelling interest in having uniformity in their neighborhoods. So you must have, say, let's say, a lawn or certain approved flowers that are common to the area in your front yard. Heaven forbid, maybe you have something that could do yourself and the community some good, a vegetable garden there. So I found this encouraging. And if you are in Florida and support this, I highly encourage you to contact your representative. Junk Bond?
You know, if you ever went to Junk Bond's house and saw all the human-sized Venus flytraps in his yard, then you'd understand why they passed these laws.
I resemble that remark. I am not amused over here. I'm.
Oh, I gotta watch it now. I'm gonna get hacked today,
man. I'm sitting here in the middle of this. I'm still doing this Twitter discussion with this.
Oh, about Venezuela. Oh, you have at him. I want to cover an article. This is a little bit
Suzanne, I'm stopping because he's gotten to troll stage where he's arguing. I told him he's arguing apples and rocks.
Okay.
So we're just walking away from that right now, and he can claim victory that he's a genius, big American flag waving dude that he is.
It's like debating with it's like playing chess with a pigeon. They knock the pieces all over, crap all over the board, and then strut away with their chest puffed out victoriously.
Yeah, I got no time for something like this. If he's not going to take the time and do the research other than the superficial things that he's seen on the news, then I don't have time for it. I said, listen to the show. Just listen to the whole show. He didn't even say he listened to the whole show, but
no, he said
Venezuela, right? Go ahead.
He probably read the description or read someone else's description of the show. People, the listeners out there, you don't understand what we're talking about. Here's what it was. Someone posted a response to a Twitter about the Venezuela show, stating that America didn't have anything to do with the downfall of Venezuela. It was all on Chavez. Well, you have to listen to the show to get the whole story, but you got to follow the money. That's the whole point of that. Who paid the money that brought this all about? And the answer is us. Big capital.
Right. It ended up in we're interested in getting long-term profits and manipulating governments so we can control and manage our national security, amongst other things. Well, he started talking about that we were looking to get the profits from the oil in Venezuela, only the oil. And no, that's not exactly right. And that it was the same thing in Iraq. And I'm like, how did you get to Iraq? You know, we've had the same foreign policy since the banana wars in the 1920s. We haven't changed how we manipulate governments, how we set up revenue streams from those governments, and then hand it back to them in foreign aid. In the same way we take taxes from the people of the states and the states, and then hand it back to them in a means of controlling them. It's the same thing, but. Anyway, I digress. That's going to be a lost cause, and I'm not going to waste my effort into trying to re-educate the super hyper educated in his own mind.
Well, before I get into this bit of Utah legislation and biometrics, let's continue down this road for a moment here, because what this was in reference to was the United States' role in the destabilization of Venezuela. And Junk Bond and Booger did an outstanding show on that a couple weeks ago. I've been sharing that link, and this discussion was in reference to that show. So again, we have to look at what roles did we have in that. And now we have a national emergency that was declared by President Trump. And the Senate had indicated, including some Republican senators, had indicated that they would vote to support a resolution voiding this national emergency. And that is exactly what they did. And now it is apparently going to be subject to a presidential veto. Is that where we are so far?
I think so. I can't wait. I love presidential vetoes. I don't think we see enough of them, to be honest with you.
I think we should just do away with Congress anyway and just have a king. You know, I mean, if we're going to give them these emergency powers, but here I want to find a friend of mine.
I ask a question here about
Can
this.
we rename it the Kremlin?
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of at a slight loss on this. Is this a binding bill, an act, or is it merely a resolution? I thought resolutions weren't binding.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't follow the
I don't know.
Pony show that quickly, but here's something a friend of mine was saying, and God bless our good friend Andrew, who weighs in and fights the fight for us. And a friend of mine had said a list of worthless beta males, cucks, and weakling women serving in our government, presenting themselves as the opposite. And then he does the list, including Mike Lee and Rand Paul and a few other Republicans. And he says, scum-filled traitors. If they had any integrity whatsoever, they would have proposed limitations on the current law, which their body passed. But no, this filth voted to prohibit a particular president in a particular situation from using the very power this body of legislature gave him. But of course, no one will really care. Here's the problem. And our good friend Andrew weighs in there and said, because somebody said, I really don't understand why Ron Paul was on the list. And as Andy said, because he understands the current law is unconstitutional and he cares about that. They did exactly the right thing, and repealing, not limiting the current law should be next. Leadership won't even allow that to come to the floor for the debate. And what are we talking about? Repealing the National Emergencies Act, which we've already discussed and concluded correctly is an unconstitutional delegation of power from Congress to the president. Am I right?
You're right. They shouldn't have that power. I know Jeff's all over this one, so I'll let him jump in on that one.
Go, Jeff.
Well, as discussed numerous times, it's not constitutional. If was the original as ratified Constitution, was there a provision for the president to declare national emergencies and to legislate as a king from decree from his pen and his phone, as Obama called it? No, there is no national emergency. There's legislative powers granted to the president in Article 2. So if it's not there, and it's not in Article 1 granting emergency powers to Congress, is there a national emergency powers clause in there for the Congress? No. So that means, as originally ratified, it would take an amendment, an Article 5 amendment to allow Congress to delegate a national emergency power to the president. So
wait, so are you saying that Congress can't do whatever it wants?
Well, if this Constitution really mattered, no, they couldn't. But since no one really cares, not even the so-called vaunted conservatives out there, because I just finished a conversation. I'm in the same spot with this guy on Facebook that you were with that guy on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I just said, listen, you're doing a great job proving you're the latter. What was the latter? He's a Marxist that's happy with his guy doing Marxist things as long as it's his guy doing them. If it's Obama doing them, no, we're against the Marxism. But when it's our guy, hey, I don't care. Forget the Constitution. We'll do whatever you want. Just be a dictator. Do whatever you want. But
that's a perfect example.
That's where we're at.
That's exactly, that goes back to the psychological concept of binary opposition. My people are better than your people. Therefore, if my people do it to me, it's okay. If your people do it to me, it's 100% wrong. And it could be the same exact object of interest that is being perpetrated on the people or perpetrated for the people, however you want to say that. It wouldn't matter. it's the concept that my people are better than your people, and my people are going to be doing what's best in my interest, regardless of it being the same exact thing that the other people are doing or not.
You know what I find very concerning also about the National Emergencies Act is exactly what constitutes an emergency is left to the discretion of the president. So once again, those that are cheering this on, Mike Lee, for instance, was one of those that supported the resolution. But what's interesting is Mike Lee, as we know, is LDS. And the LDS community considers refugees and these immigrants that come in, their vision or their interpretation is skewed because they consider these people in the same position as Joseph Smith and the LDS community trying to escape persecution. Completely different, but it also raises the issue, why do these people who came here to escape persecution now embrace the very entity that persecuted them? But I digress. So Mike Lee, why did he never speak up when we had, what was it, 38 resolutions? We went through them on another show, and I said we had 38 other instances of government action under the auspices of the National Securities Act, many of them in the Congo and other places I'd never even heard of before. Why didn't he speak up then? It's only now that he's speaking up. So I find his motives to be skewed by his religious perspective, or maybe he's just trying to go against Trump. That might be also what's motivating Mitt Romney as well. Be that as it may, to simply scale back an unconstitutional act is not enough. I'm so tired of hearing this is a step in the right direction. Even Rand Paul, he's tweeting how he can't support Trump's action on the National Securities Act, yet he's putting forth his own proposal. We talked about this, the Be Safe Act, for his solution to immigration, which he says would be constitutional. So I tweeted to him, what does the Constitution say about immigration? That got a huge response, actually, on Twitter. And Tom Mullen had some great ones in there. It's right in there with education and retirement and everything else. It was pretty funny. Tom Mullen's a good friend of ours who is a frequent contributor to FEE, the Foundation for Economic Education. So in the best and brightest that we know, including the likes of Kevin Gutzman and Tom Mullen and our good friend Alan Mosley from the Gold Standard are weighing in. We know we're in some good company here. So the thing about the Constitution, and I've been thinking, it's neither a left nor a right leaning document. It's simply a document that was supposed to set up a very structured, limited framework for a system of government. And the general government was supposed to be very limited in nature. And if it stayed limited in nature, both the left and the right could find solutions and not have to fight tooth and nail over every social issue intended to be decided by the states and not a national government in the United States of America.
But that's what they wanted.
That's exactly
what they wanted. They wanted to fight tooth and nail. They wanted to have high interaction. They wanted to have lots of visibility. They're narcissists, all of them. You know, I had to look up. I didn't know. So I'm 54 now. I didn't know what LDS meant, so I had to go look that up. I hate to say that, but that's okay. I thought you were talking because of who he was. I thought you were meaning that he was a low density simpleton, which is a army term.
I'll go with that.
That's an army term. So I kind of went, to what I naturally knew. But in fact, you meant Latter-day Saint, didn't you?
I absolutely did. I actually met him out here in Colville when he came to speak. And I wasn't impressed. I started talking to him about some immigration and birthright citizenship issues. And
oh dear,
he pulled out his Constitution and went straight for the 14th Amendment. I also asked him if he'd be willing to go on record as supporting Compact for America's Article 5 convention of the states for a balanced budget. And he said, I absolutely support a balanced budget. Well, that's not an answer, is it? These guys are so darn slick. I went and washed my hands after shaking his hand. Anyway, he said, yes, absolutely. He gave me his chief of staff's business card, call my chief of staff. And yes, because I said, look, we've got one other United States senator that will go on board, but or that will go out publicly and support this. He wants one more senator. Will you do that? Will you be the guy? And he said, absolutely. Never returned a call, never heard back from them again. They're not going to disagree with a constituent in person. These guys are just all a bunch of sociopaths. And
you should have been recording the whole thing. That's the best part of it.
Right. And here's something else, too, is when he started addressing us, he said, you know what? Colville is Utah's best kept secret. And then he just kind of smirked and said, enjoy it while you can. I thought, uh-oh. Don't you know, within a year or two, we've got these major developments going on downtown in our little community here. Taxes are going to increase. We're going to have, more congestion. It's going to change the characteristics of this neighborhood out here. But does he have something to do with that? I don't know. But just when he said, enjoy it while you can, and we saw that, it really gave cause to concern. But again, that's why I moved way out where I did, because the area simply can't support that kind of a growth. We just don't have the ability to have the infrastructure there, be it water or gas supplies or sewage or anything like that. So hopefully I'll be out here lonely for the foreseeable future. We have another bit of legislation coming out of Utah, if we can change gears here. And thanks, kudos here to Mike Meharry for keeping an ear out here on our local issues. Utah committee, this is an article published by the 10th Amendment Center, came out March 13th. Utah committee passes a bill to bar police from forcing a person to use biometric data to open an electronic device. Now, in Salt Lake City here last Friday, a Utah House committee passed a bill that would prohibit police from using a person's biometric data to get into their electronic device. Well, as we know, these phones have these little fingerprint options where you can use to unlock your phone, I guess facial recognition now, or scanning your iris. I have not done any of those. We had, let's see, Representative Adam Robertson out of Provo introduced House Bill 438 on February 27th, and this would prohibit law enforcement from using an individual's biometric information to access an electronic device protected by biometric security. This includes facial recognition, iris recognition, fingerprint scanning, voice recognition, hand geometry, and any other method of using physical characteristics to authenticate an individual in order to secure their electronic device. And there are no exceptions. During the committee hearing, Robertson said it was both a matter of protecting our persons, papers, and effects. Does that clause ring a bell? From unreasonable search and the right not to incriminate oneself. So that's what makes this so interesting. You have a right not to incriminate yourself, because that's exactly what you could be doing if they force you to use your own biometric identification to access your person's papers and effects. And that's exactly what we have in our phones these days. This is the modern day era of persons, papers, and effects. Everything's in there. It is undeniable, he says, that being compelled to provide access to an electronic device could be self-incriminating. He argued that even with a warrant, a person should not be compelled to open their own device and potentially incriminate themselves. As an example, he said police could open a safe with a warrant using a key or physically breaking the lock, but this would not involve compelling the owner of the safe to do anything. To open an electronic device by forcing a fingerprint to open a biometrically protected device is clearly a compulsory act. The resulting access and production of potentially incriminating evidence is a violation of the Fifth Amendment. Okay, we get into a little incorporation doctrine. I'd rather they quoted Utah's own constitutional authority, but this is what we got. So by limiting access to a person's data, this passage would also help limit the federal surveillance state, because, as Mike explains here, the feds can share and tap into vast amounts of information gathered by the state and local level through, we discussed this the other day, fusion centers and a system known as Information Sharing Environment, or ISE. We also talked about federal and state interaction in this regards in the what we call the Equitable Sharing Program, which is a euphemism for saying that under civil asset forfeiture laws, the states and feds will share the booty they have unlawfully stolen from those not even sometimes accused of committing a crime. Going back to the article here, fusion centers were sold as a tool to combat terrorism, but that's not how they're being used today. You know, we talk about this, folks. It's a slippery slope when we accept certain invasions of our liberty, usurpations on our freedom under the auspices of safety. It's not going to stop under the original pretext. The ACLU has pointed to a bipartisan congressional report to demonstrate the true nature now of these government fusion centers. Here's a quote: "They haven't contributed anything meaningful to counterterrorism efforts. Instead, they've largely served as police surveillance and information sharing nodes for law enforcement efforts targeting the frequent subjects of police attention: Black and brown people, immigrants, here's us, dissidents, and the poor, arguably also us." Fusion centers operate within the broader ISE. And according to this website, ISE provides analysts, operators, investigators with information needing to enhance, oh, here we go, national security. These analysts, operators, and investigators have mission needs to collaborate and share information with each other and with the private sector partners and our foreign allies. Junk Bond, you commented on that recently. In other words, ISE serves as a conduit for the sharing of information gathered without a warrant. Known ISE partners include the Office of Director of National Intelligence, which oversees 17 federal agencies and organizations, including the NSA, your old buddies, Junk Bond. ISE utilizes these partnerships to collect and share data on the millions of unwitting people they track. Limiting access to electronic data at the state and local levels also limits the amount of information that can be shared with the federal government. So what's next is it must pass by a majority of the, it must pass. Okay, it's in the House Rules Committee, and once it passes there by a majority, it will move to the full House. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. So much to comment on here. Junk Bond.
Hi, Suzanne. I was
Hi.
wondering if you were going to take a breath this week.
I knew once I turned
you get going.
I could put my feet up and enjoy my coffee in my NSA cup that you sent me.
Oh, see how nice that is.
I love my cup.
I try not to be biased, so I sent one to Jeff too. I don't know whose coffee is better. I just know that the containers are separate but equal. Okay, let's just leave it like that. I got to tell you, 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson, right?
Right.
They had it right back then. So anyway, so ISC has been collecting data for over 20, 25 years or so. And they collect so much data, I can't tell you the sharing ability that's going on. It's actually amazing. So we have a system that is supposed to allow us to share information to focus and catch terrorists, right? But I would call that that would be a gateway law that allows them to get into more intrusive and daily obstructive things that are going to happen to us from now on by allowing the collection of every single thing that's going on in your life. Basically, there have been government controlled programs. There was one at DARPA that was supposed to have ended back in 2004 that collected data on people. And it was so intrusive and so complete that they, quote, shut it down in 2004, which is when social media really started to kick off.
What did they do with that information? Did they delete it all?
Well, that was just from a small sample, so that wasn't really it wasn't really widespread at that time. However,
so wait,
what
let me
come
back
out
up
of
a
that?
minute. I'm going to interrupt. So what you're saying is when they shelved this project, Facebook miraculously came into the picture?
Well, yeah,
Huh.
yeah, and so did several of the other large social media, social networking sites.
I wonder if there's a correlation there.
Oh gosh, I don't know. But
And
the
we are
plan,
going to be getting into all this Facebook stuff later on in the show, but let's run with this a little bit more because we've got some stuff
sure,
with metadata, phones, and privacy and law and order. Go ahead.
sure, because and so you understand how complete and total the collection of information is against you right now. That we're going to use an example of, say, a crime is committed at a bank. Say somebody exposes himself at a bank, okay? And the cameras have been hacked, so there's no video. And everybody thinks this guy's going to whip out a rifle or something because he's got the long trench coat, right? So nobody reaches for their phone. So we have a non-video situation. But the perpetrator, of course, got up that morning, put on their trench coat, went to the bank, did whatever needed to be done, and then went to Burger King and went home. Now, you can say that, well, to recreate that, we have to have witnesses and evidence all over the place in order to coordinate so we can say, okay, this is where he went, this is what happened. But do you know that the health application in your Android and your iPhone is on by default? So it's collecting the distance that you have moved in every single increment. So when you sit down and stop moving, if you're carrying your phone, it will identify that as a completed action and then continue your steps from there to the next time that you stop moving and or sit down as another completed action. Take a look at the health app next time you have a chance, and it will tell you exactly how far you went, exactly how many steps, flights of stairs. That's how accurate it is. It can tell elevation and it can identify distance. So if you happen to come from the opposite side of town, end up in or about the same number of steps from a specific point that would equal the same number of steps as the bank, and then happen to go to the same Burger King and then head back home in the same manner that this guy did, your data shows that you yourself completed the same trek as that person. It puts you at the scene of the crime at the same time as it puts the perpetrator there. How creepy is that? And if you have your voice activated and your GPS records from your car, you'll be able to at least show them that you were somewhere else. But if you happen to be in the same location and you don't want to get involved with the crime, because you don't want to testify, you don't want to get involved because you've been threatened or something like that, you're not going to have a choice. They're going to prove that you were there. I think they're going to forcibly make people testify. I really see a complete pattern of life identification because that's the first thing that'll happen. How often do you go that way? What do you do when you get there? Well, it shows the same pattern of you doing the same thing as the perpetrator. You're going to be narrowed down in that first group of people that are suspects and quite possibly selected as the suspect themselves.
And if you think about it, let's say that the perpetrator used a firearm in committing his crime. Think about what the approach and the means by which law enforcement is going to initiate contact with you. It's probably, and then if you have no idea why they're even doing that and you resist at all, we've seen what happens when these situations get out of control. You know, that's one of the reasons I've never downloaded any of these fit apps, but I submit to you, you don't really need to because they can track it. They can track it anyway. You know, where I like to work out at Orange Theory Fitness, they actually have a sensor that you can wear, and then your heart rate, calories burned, everything, and the heart rate zones you're in comes up on a screen. And then they send you an email by the end of the day showing how many points you accumulated in class, what you did. I submit to you all of these mechanisms. This information is stored. We now have national control of our health insurance and our medical records. Don't you think? And now think about social credits. We've talked about that. I already shared information when I was trying to get new insurance after we lost ours for the second time, thanks to the ACA, where the companies were asking if we were engaged in any kind of motorsports activities. There is nothing they cannot learn about you when we have this kind of tracking. Interestingly enough, when I was visiting my parents in Los Altos, I saw an article in the local newspaper that said the Los Altos Police Department had decided for themselves that they have the authority to look at anybody's cell phone. So if they want to detain you, they think you've done something or in traffic, they said they had a right to open up, look inside your cell phone and see what you had in there. Persons, papers, homes, and effects, folks. We've got our banking information, personal photos in there. There's a product called a textilizer. And when I was visiting, I saw this advertised, beware. Remember, John Taylor of Caroline warned us, beware the unholy alliance of government and finance. I submit to you, beware the unholy alliance now of government and tech industries and law enforcement. So the textilizer is this little gizmo that a police officer will put into your phone. Mind you, they're not reading the data. They're just looking at your swipes. So that's a little better, isn't it, Greg?
That's all it takes. Yeah, that's all it takes sometimes. I mean,
so
there's so much information that's stored in the metadata of all of the pictures, all of the swipes, everything that happens, that your whole life could be recreated. And like you said, we'll talk about LifeLog and some of the other government programs later on. But
so
for right now, you just need to be aware that everything you're doing can be tracked and is tracked.
Yes. So they did a demonstration of a reporter driving in a parking lot. They showed him taking a phone call. They showed him texting. They showed him, I guess, liking something on on Facebook. And then they had a police officer take his phone, attach the textilizer on it, and say, oh, this is what you were doing for the last 10 minutes. So we might think, well, that's great, because if they were texting and they caused an accident, that'll help solve a crime. Will it not? Okay, if you're willing to sacrifice all that. And here's the other thing. Wait until we know that if we are asked to take a roadside sobriety test, what happens if you refuse?
You're automatically convicted on the spot.
Bingo. What do you think is going to happen when this little monstrosity makes it to the public realm? If you refuse to submit your phone to this device, and don't think that there won't be some politicians in the pockets of the makers of this device. We know that the technology groups, the insurance companies, car manufacturers who have come up with handheld wireless, the Bluetooth devices and everything to keep you off your phones, we know already that they're influencing the politicians with all these distracted driving laws. So what's going to happen now?
Distracted driving.
I love that. There is even a law, we talked about it the other day, about preventing you from, it's going to be illegal to pet your dog when you're driving. This is how ridiculous this is getting. So they're going
That's
to
cruel. That's cruelty to animals if I ignore my dog.
exactly. It's going to give them a complex. So we have to look at this. Now you refuse. Oh, I did an article called Butchering the Fourth Amendment, and Junk Bond contributed, and he explained what metadata does and how much of your life it gives away. So now these people are going to say, if you do not submit your phone to this is coming, folks, you're going to lose your license. Maybe they'll take our phones away too. But
Whoa, gosh, no way. You're gonna end. You're ending up. I mean, there's already been um, several prototypes of you just embed a chip into your arm, then the phone projects onto the arm, or the device itself will actually uh, transmit directly into the brain, so you can hear the conversation without actually uh, using your ears. You can just acknowledge and receive the signals in your brain, as well as respond from your thoughts. And that already happens. There's already devices out there that will take and uh, they'll actually control your computer from your brain waves and your thoughts. You can move the mouse around, you can type letters and stuff. I always try to warn people to not be angry at your boss in the place of where you're going to be um, sending an email to your boss if you're angry with them. Don't do that while you're hooked up to the machine. It can end up in a bad day, termination, something like that, because you could end up sending that email just completely out of anger just by thinking about it.
you
Things are
know,
going to get so far out of control for us. I just don't even have answers anymore for many of the technologies that are coming up.
this also ties in with the social credits thing as well. Look at what they can determine just from your phone, whether or not you have these different apps. And I forgot the name of the product, but I mentioned this to you when we were talking on the phone yesterday, Junk Bond. I saw an advertisement the other day, and they're showing how inconvenient it is for people to have to reach into their wallets to do all these different things in their life, go through the airport, whatever else you have to do to show your identification. Wouldn't it be nice to just put your two little fingers on this little pad, and then you can be recognized? And what they said was at checkpoints and stadiums, and more. And then they just move on about how wonderful it is. And I'm out here going, whoa, 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 whoa. Back up the truck. I want to hear more about this and more clause. What can you tell me what and more means? Junk Bond, do you have any idea? Can you tell me what and more could mean? Pretty much everything.
That's the intelligence community elastic clause. It doesn't really limit you to anything else. It could run you against databases everywhere from the FBI database to overseas to Interpol databases. They have a database called 24/7 that they run that has a lot of criminal information in there, and you can match it up by just looking at some simple biometrical data and find good guys and bad guys. Because they're not under the same laws as us, they're allowed to keep a lot of other information in their databases. Just remember that. Um, so, and this is something to remember as a whole. I would say that governments themselves have certain limitations that they quote imposed on themselves, right?
Yeah.
Or things they can't get around in order to have people do what they think that they should be doing, ignorant of whatever original guidance that a government's supposed to have their own limitations in place. So what do? They go to another country. Is it illegal? Just hear me out for a second. Is it illegal for the French to have information on U.S. citizens? Well, no, they're a foreign intelligence service. So they're going to have information on U.S. citizens. Why do you think we work with the French? Is it illegal for the Taiwanese to have information on U.S. citizens? No. That's why we work with the Taiwanese. Is it illegal for Spain or Italy name another 6 dozen countries easily? Is it illegal for them to have information on U.S. citizens? Is it illegal for them to collect all your emails? Is it illegal for them to look at all of your personal data? No. So, what are we thinking? Well, your information's out there and it's already floating around and being passed around the collective of intelligence services. Congratulations. You have nothing to hide. And I'll rest there with my case.
Well, again, if you have nothing to hide, what are you worried about, right? Well,
Backwards.
exactly. And I love Mike Meharry, again, our friend from the 10th Amendment Center. His response to that is anybody that says, if you have nothing to hide, what are you worried about? Publicly submit all of your search records on the internet for the past year. Let everybody see what you've looked up. Let everybody see whose Facebook page you trolled or orbited or whatever the kids are calling these terms these days. Let them see who you were looking up. You got nothing to hide.
Nope.
Nope.
You should have everything. I mean, you should be happy to share everything so that everybody can see that your social credits will be very high.
So what we'll do in the next hour, I want to address, yes, all of this again is tied to these social credits. Again, I even remember TSA, there were discussions of having TSA checkpoints to get into high school dances to keep weapons out of these events. I submit to you, isn't there, if anybody buys these little gizmos, and I have to find out again what this thing is called, can this be a means by which, I don't know, a grocery store can check your ID if you want to buy alcohol or cigarettes? Can you submit this for an instant credit check to purchase a vehicle or anything else? Oops, social credits. What if you want to go to a gun range? Oh, you know what? This is a great way to keep people that are a member of a prohibited class from either owning or buying or even handling a firearm. You want to adopt a pet? This rescue organization is going to check you out and do it by your fingerprints.
Mm-hmm.
Where does this stop? Hey, you want to get a babysitter? Scan this. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I just wanted to say they track everything. Last night, because the Powerball is at almost 500 million, I bought a ticket. Guess what they had? I'm 56 years old. They card me to buy a Powerball ticket. They take my driver's license and scan it. So now they recorded that I bought a Powerball ticket.
That's great.
Well, here's another one.
You're ready to take risks.
Here's another one for those that are in states where cannabis is legal, recreational, or medicinal. You have to show an ID to get into these places. Not just to get it. And some of them, I don't know if they scan. I was in one in Colorado for purely, journalistic reasons, obviously. And they looked at your ID, but didn't record it, didn't write anything down. In California, they even deliver. But here's what you got to do. Send them a picture of your ID and join one of their clubs. Do you not think that these clubs could not be cross-referenced? And we know how the feds feel about firearm ownership and any kind of cannabis, even possession. So in California, for instance, if you have a relative that is sick, or even just somebody that wants to have it recreationally, if you transport it or in possession, technically you can't even buy ammunition according to the feds. This is crazy. And they have means by which to track this. I guess we are going to go into the next hour, so we're going to take a hard break. Is that correct, Jeff? We're getting up to that time?
Yeah, we have about 40 seconds. So take us out.
All right, everybody. This is the Cerberus Radio Network, Waking Up Cerberus. Suzanne Sherman, Jeff Johnson, and Greg Junkbond Carpenter here. We're going to go into hard break, pick it up in the next hour, and I'm going to make myself a cup of coffee. Stand by.
Cerberus Radio Network, protecting liberty and freedom from the flames of tyranny.
fair enough. Okay, Roger, your special subject tonight is the economies of the European community. Your time starts now. Best of luck.
Thank you.
How much does Greece owe, Roger?
$367 billion.
Correct. And who do they owe it to?
Mostly to the other European economies.
Correct. How much does Ireland owe?
$865 billion.
Correct. And who do they owe it to?
Other European economies, mostly.
Correct. How much do Spain and Italy owe?
$1 trillion each.
Correct. Who to?
Mainly France, Britain, and Germany.
Correct. And how are Germany, France, and Britain going, Roger?
Well, they're struggling a bit, aren't they?
Correct. Why?
Because they've lent all these vast amounts of money to other European economies that can't possibly pay them back.
Correct. So what are they going to do?
They're going to have to bail them out.
Correct. Where are they getting the money to do that, Roger?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that one.
How much does Portugal owe?
Hang on a minute. What was the answer to that earlier question?
Just keep answering the questions, Roger. Where is Portugal going to get the money it owes to Germany if Germany can't get back the money that it lent to Italy?
Just a minute. What was the answer to the previous question? The question was, how can broke economies lend money to other broke economies who haven't got any money because they can't pay back the money the broke economy lent to the other broke economy and shouldn't have lent it to them in the first place because the broke economy can't pay it back?
You're wasting very valuable time, Roger. How much money does Spain owe to Italy?
$41 billion, but where are they going to get it?
Correct. What does Italy owe to Spain?
$27 billion, but they haven't got it. They're broke.
Correct. How can they pay each other if neither of them has any money?
They're going to get a bailout, aren't they?
Correct. And where's the money coming from for the bailout?
That's what I'm asking you.
Correct. Why are people selling the European currency and buying the US dollar?
Because the US economy is so much stronger than the European economy.
Correct. Why is that, Roger?
Because it's owned by China.
Correct. And very well done. And after that round, you've lost $1 million.
I've lost $1 million. I thought you said well done.
Yes, well done. You've only lost $1 million. That's an extraordinary performance, Roger.
I've only lost $1 million.
Very well done.
And that's quite good, is it?
Oh, it's excellent.
Sell everything immediately. Quickly.
Cerberus Radio Network, protecting liberty and freedom from the flames of tyranny.
Well, welcome back to hour number dose of the waking up. Well, we're going to keep talking about Venezuela, right? Aren't we?
Well, that's a good way to, I want to also, something I was thinking of when we were talking about the tracking and our phones and law enforcement and
hold on. You're thinking too far out of the box, Suzanne. Hold on a second. Welcome back to Waking Up Cerberus.
Oh yeah.
You've got Gregory Junkbond Carpenter here with Super Suzanne Sherman somewhere in the hinterlands of Utah, which is being rapidly developed around her home. And we have the great Jeff Jumpin' Jack Flash Johnson in the producer's office in his bunker in Pennsylvania near the New York border somewhere, hiding from the New York tyranny. Jeff, you know that the Green Mountain Boys in Vermont were originally formed to keep the New Yorkers out of Vermont back in the colonial times?
I did not know that.
See that?
I'll have to look up that history.
That was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it was a great idea. It didn't work, unfortunately. Too many New Yorkers took over, and it became even socialist back then, unfortunately. Thank God my relatives were from New Hampshire, the eat free or die state or something. It's about socialism too, I guess. But yeah, if you listen to my show on the Vermont Constitution and the Green Mountain Boys, I think you'll enjoy that.
A lot of great content here. Is that one on the Cerberus Radio Network, or is that from your old show?
That's from the old station, but I was looking at bringing over some of those, and I'm working on a couple of those right now. So we'll see. And that's one of them that I was actually working on to try to bring over. So we'll see if we can get in here. So Suzanne, for the legal commentary, go.
Well, I actually wanted to get into a little bit. We were talking about the tracking abilities of these phones and these other products. I think we were talking about Waze the other day. And we're familiar with that product OnStar. And we also have now insurance companies. I think Progressive is the one that will say, we will reward you for good driving. Well, how do they know that they're going to reward you for good driving? It's not because you haven't gotten tickets in a few years. It's because they have a little gizmo you plug into your car that gives them the diagnostics and what you're doing in your vehicle. Now we also have that with Waze. They know how fast we're going. I think the phones, and there are all these other apps that can tell you. I think even on Snapchat, it shows you this. So I also saw another insurance company offering the same thing where you get rewards for good driving. What is good driving? That actually measures, it calculates how hard you brake, your acceleration, your turns. When I was in New York last summer with my son, we rented a vehicle. And it was one of those little hybrid thingies. I thought the battery was dead because I turned the key or pushed the button and I heard nothing. And then it turned out, oh, it is doing what it's supposed to do. But it had a little spectrum there, a little gauge. So if you accelerated, it took you into a zone that they called aggressive driving. Well, this little thing had a flippin' hamster in a wheel running the engine here. So we were going up through some hills and we had to get on the gas. We weren't passing anybody. We were just pretty much trying not to go backwards, one of these little piece of crap electronic vehicles. That was called aggressive driving. So now take this into the social credits realm where your insurance rates might go up. Maybe it might cost you more to rent a car.
Well, this is interesting because this is one of those things that right now your insurance company rewards you for good driving, right? Your good driving record. They have no tangible way to calculate that other than the lack of evidence that you committed a crime. In the future, all of the, and when I say the future, I mean in the next couple of years, all of the activities that you participate in while driving, as Suzanne mentioned, will be sent directly to your insurance company. Think of it right now. You can't even pick up or purchase a car, right, unless you tell them you have insurance for that vehicle. And if you have a note that you owe on the car, you actually have to inform the insurance company that you have a note on it, and you have to let the lender know who your insurance company is. There's already discussion. This is a way of easing you into the social credits for driving, and this is again, this is a gateway abuse, I would call it, that will expand further on as you get into other things and we look at other aspects of people's lives. But this is the easiest one to control. Right now, it's done with truckers, cross-country truckers, big time. They get scrutinized for everything and anything, how fast they go, how many miles they cover in a day, if they got their federal government uh, regulated number of hours of rest. Did they exceed the number of hours of driving that they were supposed to have? It's a completely backwards system if when you think about it, but this is the best way to control a population because previous director of the CIA said the best way to maintain a society of law and order is to control the population. One way of doing it is to surgically manipulate the brain. The other is Pavlovian in concept, conditioned reflex. You condition everyone so that their behaviors do not operate or function outside of a very modified or small variance of what police are very comfortable dealing with, on one hand, and number two, that will keep them in line and so far away from causing problems for the government to operate and collect revenue from them, which is really the bottom line, to steal your wealth.
By the way, I'm back. I got kicked off the internet.
Oh, like Facebook? You just
Yeah.
jumped over to getting kicked off the internet now?
Right, exactly. But you know, in the time that I was off and I was speaking, it was sheer brilliance. What a shame you missed it. Can I just carry on with the question that I had really quick? I don't know if you heard it, but it was about the signs from, when you travel from, I guess, the Baltimore area, crossing south of DC into Arlington and Alexandria, warning you that they are tracking aggressive drivers, and they're doing this electronically. I didn't see officers out there that was being monitored. Do you know anything about that program and what they're doing, how they're getting this information?
Sure. Yeah, there's in the old days they would put cars out, and they would have the speed devices on the car, and it would snap a picture of the license plate. Now they have hard set cameras in place that don't move or don't change locations, which is reported on Waze and other driving applications. But there's also a way of doing it through the tolls. So in the East Coast here, pretty much most of the East Coast, you have an affiliation of what's called Easy Pass. Now, Easy Pass one would think is one large company, but it's actually the Easy Pass confederacy of numerous companies that offer the Easy Pass access. So there's several companies that offer this. It's almost like the states were supposed to be. They have this big umbrella that says you have to offer Easy Pass access, and this is the only thing that you have to do. And you have to do it using these technical requirements. And then every company can put together and do what they need to do in all the different states to meet that requirement. And that's it. It's brilliant. It's like a constitution. But I digress.
But it works.
Yeah, right. And it works really well. So, but in the Easy Pass system, every time you pass a sensor, all your the sensor collects the data from your system, which goes back and reconciles against your account to identify which car you're driving, how fast you were going, because the sensor itself does not collect the speed, but it is distance over time. Oh, look at that. My gosh, did I just bring physics into this? We did. Distance over time will give you speed, rate of travel, right? And it'll tell someone if you're traveling 65, 75, 85, 95, based on every time you check in with the sensor. Because there's only a certain amount of time that it takes you, like 1 mile a minute is 60 miles an hour. 2 miles a minute is 120 miles an hour. I've seen some people do this. But you don't necessarily need to receive a ticket on the spot for your actions. It can be mailed to you for your convenience and you pay a convenience fee too, just because that's how it works. Because they have the record that shows there's no physical way that you could have gotten from point A to point B in X amount of time unless you were traveling a speed or traveling at a rate that exceeded the acceptable rate or the set limit for that road. It's pretty simple math, and they send out lots and lots of tickets all the time.
So you don't even have to be pulled over. It just goes out electronically. Interesting. And imagine also, again, when you start thinking of social credits, we don't really know what the extent of firearms background checks really are, do we? So how deep are they going to go? Will they even look at our traffic patterns? I mean, they're starting to look at a lot of things. I think they're, again, trying to get the net and ensnare as many people as they can and put them in a prohibited class of ever being able to access firearms. And that being said, before we get into this whole Facebook glitch and the Facebook data privacy, possible criminal prosecutions, I wanted to let Jeff address an issue out of his kind of neck of the woods, the issue of Remington, and a court has ruled that they can be sued civilly now for the Sandy Hook shootings. You want to run with that one, Jeff?
Sure. It's just interesting. I believe yesterday or the day before, the Connecticut State Supreme Court ruled that Remington can be sued by the families of the Sandy Hook shooting. So a person takes a firearm and uses it illegally, not for its intended purposes, and now they can be sued for that bad action of a person. So I sat here and thought, well, what does this Pandora box open? Well, now Ford should be able to be sued for whenever somebody uses that vehicle in a drunk driving accident that kills somebody else. Ford is now responsible for that. Name your poison. I don't know. Think of any product out there. If someone uses it in a way it's not intended to be used and causes harm to somebody else, now that company is now liable for the damages to that person. So this is just opening a Pandora's box that is going to pretty much close up every business, because everyone's going to sue every business in America, and there's going to be no more businesses, and there's going to be no more jobs. What's going to be left? There's just nothing there.
I think you're being a little bit pessimistic, Jeff, because let me remind you that the manufacturers of vaccinations are immune to lawsuits. So the government has decided to protect them. So not everybody, Jeff. It's not as
a really bad pun.
It's not.
They're immune because they're vaccine manufacturers. Oh my God. Never mind.
I smirked when I said that, a la Nick Sandman. But yeah, I mean, so if the government was really interested in really saving lives, I mean, here we have vaccinations, no liability from that. So the other thing, Junk Bond, do you want to jump in before I get into the little legal analysis here?
No, I want to hear the legal analysis, because this is such an arbitrary decision. I can't. Is a pencil? Okay, so is a pencil manufacturer going to be sued if I write something bad that hurts somebody's emotional well-being?
Yes.
Jeff, stop. Your words hurt me.
I was never a math person.
I'm going to sue McDonald's. I'm overweight.
I want to sue the pencil manufacturers for my abysmal math scores going through school. Is the statute of limitations up on that one? But you know,
number 2 pencil, did you win?
Number 2 pencil. Yeah, now I know why they call it the number 2. But
no mechanical pencils allowed, please.
When we talk about civil liabilities, and we discuss this with regards to the obligations, for instance, of police officers, and do they have an obligation to protect an individual citizen, we have this analysis, what we call duty, breach, causation, damages. So it's incumbent upon the plaintiff to prove that the defendant had a duty to them, that they breached that duty of care, that breach caused damages. When we get into the area of products and product liability, we have these fitness for intended use. We have strict product liability if it's defective or dangerous. But when we have a product and we have to look at the fitness for intended use standard, did the gun show that it was fit for its intended use? Well, its intended use, Remington did not go into business so psychopaths could go and shoot up schools. Firearms are tools, no more, no less. Are you going to sue the manufacturer? Are you going to sue Craftsman Tools? Does Craftsman make hammers? Anyway, whoever makes hammers, are you going to sue them if somebody's bashing somebody else's head in with a hammer? No,
Suzanne, can I use this argument? No, this is something that's
stuff. Don't mock me.
No. I'm not mocking you. So if I use a hammer in an unintended manner, Craftsman can be sued.
Yes.
Not me.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So if I use the Constitution in an unintended manner, can I sue the heirs of James Madison?
Yes.
I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous. So, oh, no, I just lost that thought because James Madison just threw me off.
I mean, that's brilliance right there. Come on.
But if you think about it, this is motivated, obviously, here's from the Captain Obvious department. Obviously, this is a decision that is coming from a judge who is anti-firearm, because clearly this would have a devastating impact on firearms manufacturers, with the ultimate, maybe unspoken desire that if they're subject to this liability across the board, they're going to go bankrupt, because we know that traditional means of gun confiscation and gun regulations, those are too slow. So again, for those of you cheering on Trump's national emergency nonsense, you just wait until the gun grabbers are in charge and say that maybe we'll have another convenient shooting like Aurora, Colorado. What was going on when they had the Aurora, Colorado shooting, gentlemen?
I don't remember. Don't remember what was going on.
At that exact moment, the United Nations gun ban treaty was in negotiations. How convenient. We had a shooting right during that. So, wait till we have a national emergency and we're going to have a significant crackdown on firearms ownerships.
Yeah. So here's my problem with this whole thing, Suzanne, is that it's going to be a jury that's going to decide this. And in Connecticut, are you going to get a very, very conservative jury that's going to listen to the facts of the matter that there's no reason for Remington to be sued here? They did not make this person use their product in an illegal manner.
Can we clone?
So because they're going to be doing this on their values. So there's a lot of people that are for gun control in Connecticut, and they don't even have to get all 12 jurors. They just have to get the majority. So that's the problem. It's an example of this. In New York State, everyone knows I work in corrections. We had some officers sued by an inmate making claims that they did whatever. I'm not going to get into the facts of the case. The state's attorney proved that the inmate was lying, proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt. He won a monetary judgment against the officers in the state of New York. Fortunately, the officers are indemnified by the state, so the state paid it. But he won a monetary payout because the liberal jury gave it to him, in spite of the fact that they proved that he lied about it. Therein lies the problem with this whole idea that they can sue a gun company and expect a jury to get it right. They're not going to get it right. They're going to use their values to decide this, and it's going to be the wrong decision.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Are terrorists going to be allowed to sue drone makers for the U.S. No, I'm certain. Why are you laughing at me? This is serious stuff. Are they going to be allowed to, in U.S. courts, sue, right, U.S. drone makers for attacking them? I think this is the same type of a scenario.
I'd like to,
or if not far away.
Maybe the government of Yemen can file suit against Raytheon. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Let me address something here before we get into the whole Facebook thing, because what we're seeing right now is surveillance data gathering on a mass scale, as well as censorship. The other day, I pointed out the absolutely ludicrous claim that Facebook made when they took away, I guess, Elizabeth Warren's statements that Facebook, they were too powerful, whatever it was. The discussion was Facebook took down her ads. And then, because it was Elizabeth Warren, they reinstated the ads saying they wanted to have robust debate. Oh, please. You can have a post on Facebook that says that you want to kill white people. But if you have a post on Facebook that says it is a goal of political Islam to take over other cultures, that will get you banned. This is the problem when we have human beings setting up these community service guidelines. I actually saw a picture yesterday of John McCain with a Saudi prince, and I said, this is John McCain meeting with the head of the Facebook Community Standards Department. But here's a story that says Amazon is removing books promoting autism cures and vaccine misinformation. The titles suggested pseudoscientific methods such as ingesting and bathing in a potentially toxic form of bleach and taking medication meant to treat arsenic and lead poisoning. Now, there are a lot of books, there's a lot of commentary out there with regards to the claim that the MMR vaccine causes autism. Now we're seeing claims that it actually prevents autism. There are many claims out there, or books and people discussing natural homeopathic treatments for autism as well. Amazon, I'm going to read from the article here. It's from NBC News, is removing.
Suzanne, hold on. Let me just, we got to interject in here real quick because I have to get, someone's responded in our chat on Facebook or on YouTube. So I have to get this in because we always want people to keep coming back. Ed said, I want to file a lawsuit against Intel for hackers hacking my Facebook. You know what, Greg? I think that we should be able to
score
Intel and or AMD for the NSA spying on us
and Israel.
They caused it because they made these computers.
Remember, it was Israel too, and it's not. That's extremely good. So you don't want to stop there at Intel, though. So I'm just expanding on his thought. What you really want to do is go after, like, dude, you're getting a Dell, HP, all those others, because the actual setup of how a computer is put together in the desktop itself is inherently insecure, and it's easy to. It's easier to do an over-the-air hack because of the way that the computers are set up. An RF signal can jump from one component to another in a very easy way that your system will not see it. It'll be out of band. And that's one of the ways, you know, an article came out a couple of years ago that NSA can hack computers that are not connected to the internet. Well, this is one of those ways that, guess what? Your computers are being hacked, they're being attacked, and all your information is being stolen. It's the actual design of how the box is put together itself. It wasn't designed for security. It wasn't designed to stop RF signals moving from the cord into the battery, into the hard drive. It's into the motherboard, into the hard drive. It's not designed for that. So you're never going to see those attacks coming. They're called out of bandwidth attacks. They happen more frequently than you might think. There's an Israeli product that has been marketed that allows people to do that. You can do it from 20, 30 feet away from a computer. You don't need to be that close. And if you have a virus that's put in through the electrical system, I know it takes time. I know it's slow, but guess what? It'll take your system down. So
I'm sorry, Suzanne.
Absolutely. This is awesome. This is a great idea. Let's sue everybody.
Ed just added that he wants to sue Al Gore for inventing the internet. So this has no end. I'm sorry. Go back to your article. I didn't mean to interrupt it, but when people respond in here, especially when it's
perfect, because you know what that is. Yeah, you know what that is, Jeff? That when we put all of these together and we sue Intel plus HP plus Dell plus Al, you know what that equals? That's an algorithm.
Oh, one demerit per. Okay, a good pun, very good pun. Algorithm. All right, Suzanne, go back to your article. I'm sorry.
Well, I actually have a question with regards to what Greg was saying. Is it, and I don't know the answer to this, is it, I know that we're not supposed to, like when you go into places with public Wi-Fi, we obviously don't want to do anything sensitive like any banking information. But is that information vulnerable regardless of whether you attach to this Wi-Fi? Or is it vulnerable if, for instance, you stay on the 4G network and do your banking if you're away from home? Where's the most secure place to do these kind of operations? Or is there one?
In the bank.
In the bank with a human.
Walk in, say, hi, I'm Greg. Give me my money. And next step, that's even better, is don't even give them your money. Who makes money when you put money in the bank? Please. They do. They charge you everything. It's the reason the bank is here is to siphon off some of your money and give you a little more convenient access to doing things. Make your own bank. Do something else. But I digress. It's yes, it's there's no place that is safe. You can't guarantee your device is safe and secure. I'll tell you right now, there's no device that is safe and secure. Period. Even the deputy director of the the director of the Information Assurance Directorate at the National Security Agency, Deborah Plunkett, said at one point, she said, "We have to assume that every device is compromised." Period. This was back in 1896 or 1898, something like that. So NSA has been around a long time. No, I'm just kidding. It was in 2004 that she said it, but it highlights something extremely significant. We have to expect that every device is compromised as a starting point. So expect that your television is compromised. Expect that your computers are compromised, of course. Expect that your refrigerator is compromised. Expect that your automobile is probably compromised. Anything that has an IP address can be hacked, period. Think about all the supervisory control and data acquisition systems that are out there that control the reservoirs, that control the electrical grid. These things have 0.0% security. They are hacked all the time. All the time.
And again, not only hacked, but even the data utilized by our own government to track us. Look at the smart meters. We have the smart thermostats, these home systems, the home we talked about the other day, a moral AI, where a computer, some programmed machine, we know the type of people that are putting in the code for this, will have an internal discussion as to whether or not they should report you to the police department. So not only
Exactamundo.
And
Yeah, if you turn up your heat in the wintertime too far, you know what? You could be violating some statute you don't even know about, and your own thermostat will report you. I had somebody who had that stupid ring on their front door to be able to see who walks into the house. You have got to be kidding me. Please.
Well, didn't Amazon have a service that they can put your goods that you order inside your home when you're away? And
yeah,
some
that
people I
that
know
went way past, huh?
idea. So their neighbors or people driving through won't steal packages. I would rather take the chance of having something being stolen, or maybe say signature required, than allow a stranger to have access into my home. I mean, what's going to happen to keep them? How can you possibly keep that person from just delivering the package and leaving?
Well, you have your internal CCTV surveillance.
That will find them
that'll do it.
After all your stuff is gone, we can see who did it. Let me get to this. Speaking of Amazon, I want to get to this article, and then we're going to get into some of this Facebook stuff, because they're facing some, no pun intended, some criminal charges. But getting back to Amazon, this is important because people might be saying, we'll start with an unsympathetic target here. Well, we don't like these, anti-vaxxers or people that are, bucking the traditional medicinal system that does more harm than good. But let me ask you this. Do you really think it's okay for Amazon to censor what kind of products are available to them? Well, you don't have to get it from Amazon. You can just go to your local bookstore. Well, they're getting harder and harder to find thanks to Amazon. Amazon is removing, this article says, from its online marketplace autism cure books that are unscientifically claim children can be cured of autism with pseudoscientific methods such as ingesting and bathing in a potential. Okay, so they're saying something here like partially toxic form of bleach. I mean, at some point, where do you draw the line where it is okay to take books off the shelves? They said healing the symptoms known as autism and fight autism and win are no longer available, but declined to answer specific questions about why it had removed them or whether they were part of a larger cleanup effort, citing a policy of not commenting on individual accounts. What is this cleanup effort? And is it going to be sticking to the science of autism? Or maybe, just maybe, is it possible that it might extend extend to the pseudoscience of denying, I don't know, climate change? What if you write a book that says, hey, you know what? According to the Constitution as ratified, the Confederate States of America had every right to form after the states left the Union. Oh my God, we got to take that out. That's hate speech. Folks, bathing in bleach to cure autism, I will say right now, is stupid. Okay? But where do you say it's not okay? Where do you draw this line? When others decide what information is going to be available to us, particularly when they have an overwhelming dominance in the marketplace for this material you are seeking. If you're okay with this, this is a very slippery slope. Online platforms, the article said, have been reacting to increased scrutiny from lawmakers, and public health advocates over the health misinformation. Well, what did I say earlier? Beware of the unholy alliance between the pharmaceutical industry and government. And now we have censorship. I also said, beware of the unholy alliance between the government and the tech giants. Well, here we are. What an evil, entangled web we have here. Web, no pun intended. Well, actually, that was a pretty good pun. I'll take credit for that one. So this is all tying together. Here we have Facebook announced it would downrank vaccine misinformation shared on its platform and reject advertising that spread vaccine hoaxes. What if you have an article explaining that climate change is a hoax? That message will be downranked, but the green climate crap is at the top of all your news feeds. We have people that have an agenda targeting, ranking, selecting the information that is available to us in the town square of the 21st century. Social media, the general store of the 21st century, the newsstands of the 21st century, Amazon, Facebook. Our views are not welcome, and they let us know. Algorithms. I sent you an article about algorithms. Junk Bond, do you want to comment on that real quick? And then we'll move away. I think I made my point with the Amazon censorship here. You can read more. That was an article out of a NBC News. Just so people don't think I'm going to all these sites that they consider questionable. I like to go to some of these mainstream places and show, see, this is what the big guys are talking about too, not just my little esoteric rabbit hole sites I like to visit.
Which article are you talking about? You sent me about 1,700 articles.
Okay, and you should have read them all. You should have read them all and taken notes. I got them to you last night. You had time.
I had.
Sleep is optional.
Right.
Not a mandatory, come on.
Says Mr. 22-year-old. Yeah.
I'm 2 years older than you.
So what's up with algorithms? Tell me, just to give me a quick overview, and I could probably talk about it anyway because I probably
essentially we're just going to spend a minute or two on this. It just says that algorithms are just controlling all of the information that is available to us right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes. Actually, I did read part of that, but I stopped because I knew the rest of it. So see how good are we here at Cerberus? We're good enough to just be able to look at the headlines and articles and know what it's about. That's better than Rush Limbaugh. My gosh, he at least has to read the author. So the bottom line, is that you're absolutely right. The algorithms run and manipulate and manage your whole day. And I'll get into it in a second, but I wanted to talk about Russian, what's called information warfare. And basically, propaganda. They plant information here, we plant information there. We go back and forth, right? Every country in the world does this back and forth with every other country. This is what promotes the individual. Like, this is how we promote our values somewhere else. If we have any, they promote theirs over here if they have any. And every other country around the world does these things, with a few exceptions like Switzerland and places like that, that have no time for foolishness and seem to do pretty well on their own, by the way. Now, the way that the Russians do it is based on mathematical outcomes. They actually use algorithms to decide how they're going to spend their resources and the expected effectiveness, or the PK, for all those statisticians out there. The effectiveness of all of their efforts in a certain area. They measure all this. That's why they're so good at chess, I guess I would say, because they sit there and logically plan and go through and analyze all of their actions. On the other hand, we on this side here have taken big business and have empowered them to take our malleable population with the hundreds of thousands of different ideas and thoughts and help guide them into what you would call cylinders of mediocrity.
I love it.
You can you can become mediocre if you get up in the morning and you become part of that algorithm. You get up, hopefully you go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, wash your hands, wash your face, clean yourself, shower, do something like that first. However, many people don't. There's a good group of people from research that shows that many people will go to the bathroom, they'll leave the bathroom, they'll wash their hands in public, but they won't wash their hands at home. And the first thing they do is go pick up a cup of coffee, grab their mobile device, and start surfing Facebook. Second most highest is they'll start to surf Twitter after that.
I submit to you, they do it in the bathroom. We've all seen that little meme of the guy reading the can of air freshener because he forgot his phone.
That's the second most popular because for some, no, seriously, the it's a crappy subject. But
I read my barber saw can.
Jeff, you're bald.
Yes. How do you think I keep it that nice and shiny glow I have up there? The barber saw.
Oh, what was that? What was that stuff from Coming to America? The shiny gel stuff they put in their hair.
Oh, Afro Sheen.
Afro Sheen. I'm gonna send you some Afro Sheen, Jeff.
I even remember it from that movie, and the wet spots on the couch and stuff.
That's
See,
right.
Only on Cerberus Radio Network do we get this stuff. I mean, they're not going to get this stuff off of Shamnity.
No, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry. So anyway, so your life has turned into an algorithm, basically, because you're part of the larger mathematical calculation, the analysis of big data. So Facebook has algorithms that will point information to you. It will give you and show you different things that you are thinking about or talking about. We've talked about it before. All you have to do is say it in front of your phone, in front of your computer. If you have a microphone device on your computer, you might turn it off, but it's always on. Don't forget about that. The facial recognition from the camera can read lips. There are certain types of programs that can run that can read lips. So you really have to watch what you're talking about, thinking about doing, because it will show up all over the margins of Facebook. It'll show up all over the margins of your Chrome browser.
I told you that happened to me when I was looking for my Sharpie.
Yeah.
And I got all these Amazon notifications for the Sharpies. You know, we're 15 minutes to go and we haven't even gotten to the main topic of the show yet. Can I get into the Facebook glitch yesterday, or do you want to wrap this up? What do you want to do?
No, go right ahead. Start glitchifying.
Okay, well, as we know, social media was on fire the other day because Facebook was down in everybody's lives. Were you safe from that tragedy? Thoughts and prayers to all of those that were affected. I'm in the Facebook correctional facility still serving hard time, so I was unaffected. But one thing that did happen was I noticed that I could not access my radio page, Suzanne Sherman's The Wasatch Report. So I wonder if I can sue Facebook for emotional distress because I thought my page was gone. But Facebook is blaming database overload for what they say is the most severe outage in its history after normal service was restored globally following 14 hours of problems. Social media users in parts of the US, Europe, and South America and Japan were worst hit by the problems, and which were also affected in its apps, Instagram and WhatsApp. All of the networks appear to be working again. The last time Facebook was disrupted to a similar extent was in 2008. And at that time, it had 150 million users. Now it has 2.3 billion. Now, coincidentally, we have some other things going on with Facebook. And Junk Bond, I'm going to let you decide. Go ahead.
I just want to jump in here because, you know, Facebook and them went out, but I actually had some serious issues in SoundCloud. So I think this was actually more than just Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, because I had some download issues in SoundCloud. I mean, it was pretty far reaching because I had trouble in a number of different platforms that same day.
Well, and I'm not surprised. I mean, the internet I found in general for me, and I just had an issue with it earlier. Again, my internet dropped, and that's how I left the conversation talking to myself here. And unfortunately, everybody missed that brilliant analysis I was sharing to apparently an audience of 3 cats. But here's an article here out of Zero Hedge. Facebook, known for its occasional mistakes, said in a statement they are cooperating with investigators and assured the New York Times that they are taking these probes seriously. It's unclear when but there's apparently a grand jury probe in New York. The company is simultaneously facing investigation by the SEC and the FTC, while the Justice Department's fraud division began investigating the social media giant following reports that the political consulting firm, we remember this, Cambridge Analytica, improperly harvested the Facebook data up to 87 million people for political purposes. I submit to you, they're the ones that interfered in the elections. We also have the issue of them collecting information without explicit consent. Amazon was able to harvest users' names and contacts through Facebook Friends, thanks to the United States having no central consumer privacy laws regarding data. I submit to you such laws would be unconstitutional regardless. Up to 400 million people's private information was freely shared with the likes of Google, Netflix, Spotify, and others. Facebook didn't sell it. They're giving this up for free through the tech community in order to foster industry relationships and advance their own interests. So they're facing some controversies here. Also, remember, there was a while back, and I don't think this is the subject of possible charges or investigations, where they admitted to using their customers. Well, again, we're not their customers, we're their products, but using a PSYOPs experiment on us. You remember that, Junk Bond? So this being said, why don't you get into this and how significant these charges are? I think that it's almost like Facebook is going to be taking a fall, much like the insurance industry did when the government was passing the Affordable Care Act or negotiating the Affordable Care Act. They made the insurance companies look like the bad guys, but ultimately the insurance companies let themselves take all these insults so they could ultimately profit from this. I think this will probably come out benefiting Facebook. What say you, Junk Bond?
It's definitely going to benefit Facebook. They're going to look like the heroes. Cambridge is run out of California, and the grand jury is sitting in New York. There will be no indictments. I don't think there'll be any serious indictments. A couple of people will be offered up here and there as violating this policy or that policy or this law or that law or whatever, and they'll get a deal. But the bottom line is going to be that Facebook is going to turn out to be the guys that are out there helping you. They're going to be the superheroes that swoop in and save the day from Cambridge Analytica and some of the other corporations that have been supporting and doing this data collection and sharing over time. There's no other way for this to come out because you can't afford. Think of it like this. You got a couple billion users. That's the same number of people that saw the Baby Shark video. That's a lot of people. That's 1/4 of the people in the world. What happens tomorrow if Facebook goes away? Jeff, you want to take a stab at that? What happens if Facebook disappears?
People might have to talk to each other face to face.
They would be removed from the system that's been artificially set up to support them from having to interact with their neighbors, with their friends. You think about it now. You have areas in your towns that are zoned business, zoned residential. Do you talk to your neighbors? We talk to our neighbors all the time. But most people, do they talk to their neighbors in an apartment building? Do they know their neighbors? Odds are they probably don't. You can't walk down the street to go to a business, can you? No, you have to get in a vehicle and drive to a business area. Do you have any interaction with people on the streets walking back and forth? No, that's been removed from the process. There's certain things that have been removed from the process. Facebook is not one of those things that will be removed because that is an essential part of the algorithm of maintaining control, maintaining the focus, and keeping a certain level of dumb down. Before in the show, we were talking about I was twitting with this guy back and forth. This whatever his name was, the lone brilliant tomato or whatever his name is, I forget.
Orange peel or something.
Yeah, that too. So and he all I asked him to do was listen to the full show, so you would understand how the U.S. government supported Chavez. And he said, "Well, you don't know anything about history and this and that. What do the 20s have to do with now?" And I said, "It's our foreign policy that has not changed. We go in, we do stuff, we send in business." Back in the 20s, we sent the Chiquita Banana Company into Latin America to make millions of dollars. We did the same thing with U.S. interests in Venezuela, and we did it with every other country there. But I ended up in this near tit for tat, and I stopped myself. And he sent me 4 other twitifications after that, asserting that his brilliance was overwhelming my ignorance and my inability to realize that the 1920s are different from 2019. And he said, "I'm done." And I said, "I guess you are." That's all I responded with, because there's no reason to get into this long-winded discussion with people that are so focused on their own righteousness and justification based on the limited information that they've gotten. Booger spent a whole show telling us how he worked for the U.S. government with the Venezuelan government. He spent the whole show doing that. This guy wouldn't take an hour out of his life to sit and listen to Booger explain how the U.S. government supported Venezuela privately, while out in public demonized them to a certain extent because we still wanted to do business with them. And it happens everywhere. We did the same thing with North Korea. We did the same thing with Iran. Removing the medium that limits people's ability to think objectively on their own would be exceedingly detrimental. There's no way that would be successful. And to do it cold turkey, I ask you, Greg, is there a way that that the world will be able to give up Facebook just like that? It's
I have to tell
not
you,
going to happen.
I think it's really underestimated the addiction aspect that Facebook has over us. First of all, because we're just so comfortable with it. Like you said, either before or after or during, whenever you do it, you get on that phone and just sit there and scroll. I know I did that. I could be watching a TV or have somebody in the room with me, and I've got that, and I'm just, my thumb's just scrolling that stupid screen. And since I got these two, these Facebook bans, I just took it off my phone. I took Messenger off my phone, and I was still getting notifications on my phone. So I had to actually log off of it. So now it's completely off of my smartphone. Is it still tracking me? I would assume so, because there are other things that I use on Facebook. How many times can you go in? You want to order plane tickets? You can go on Orbitz. You can log in using Facebook. How many of these other unrelated sites can you log in using Facebook? Is it fair to say if you use these, login means, Junk Bond, that Facebook knows what you're doing?
It has a complete tracking of everything that's associated with Facebook. There's really no difference from you logging into one site or another if it's linked to Facebook. And this goes back to what I was really going to talk about, was the DARPA LifeLog program. That it comes from the Department of Defense Advanced Research Programs Office. And what is LifeLog? LifeLog was a program that basically collected so much information. It collected a massive amount of electronic information on every activity and relationship that a person engaged in. It included credit card purchases, websites visited, the content of telephone calls and emails sent and received, scans of faxes, mail sent and received, instant messages sent and received, books and magazines read, television, radio selections, physical locations based on GPS data, biomedical data captured through different sensors that were available. It was amazing. The high level goal of the program was to identify preferences, plans, goals, and numerous other markers of intentionality, is what it was called. And it was so intrusive that right around the time that it was shut down, which was January 2004, you'll see a big shift and a big increase in the number of social media and social networking sites and applications that hit the market within just a few months of each other. Was it shut down again? Like any good government program, MK Ultra, right? All the psychotropic testing of people and abuse of people. Was it shut down? I don't know. We see implications of these types of things still going on today. So is it really something that's shut down? Or did we just get fed another story to find out that there'll be a national security archive declassification come in 25 years, and the government will say, you know what? We really didn't shut that down. We were using it for surveillance and life logging everything that you did. I don't know if there is a direct link between Facebook and Instagram and anything like that with what the government program was, the defense program was of LifeLog. But I do see many, many, many similarities and many of the same ideas on how information was to be collected and how it was to be stored.
And that wraps up another episode. Folks, we challenge your thinking here, just like our little friend on Twitter didn't like what we had to say. Be receptive to what we have to say here. It's research. We don't just get this from esoteric website. We had Booger. He was on the ground. He knew what was going on in Venezuela. We bring that information to you. On behalf of the rest of us here, Junk Bond, Greg Carpenter, and Jeff Johnson, I'm Suzanne Sherman. I want to thank you for listening.